Needs to turn on her video camera. Um, and she will be joining us in just a moment. While she does that, I want to remind everyone that you are watching CosmoQuest X right here on twitch.tv. Today we are bringing you 10 straight hours of celebrations of the 365 Days of Astronomy podcast. This means it's going to be all astronomy all the time, or podcasting and new media as well. And if you want to get in on everything we do, well, follow along in the chat, join us on Discord, and as always, we are brought to you by you. 365 Days of Astronomy is made possible thanks to the generous contributions of person after person who has sponsored an episode year after year after year. The best way that you can help us is to sponsor an entire episode for $45. You can also become a long-term contributor through patreon.com. Nancy, I still need your video. Looking to see if Nancy is typing to me somewhere that I'm just not seeing. I hear her keyboard. I don't hear her or see her. So Nancy Atkinson, who will be joining us in just a moment, was one of the original members of the 365 Days of Astronomy team. She was part of the New Media Task Force for the International Year of Astronomy. She was a writer and later a senior editor for Universe Today. Thank you, House of Steve. I'm going to switch views to the doggos so that if there's doggos up here, I don't see doggos up here. Oh, we're missing doggos. Once we have doggos, I will give you a dose of cuteness. In thanks. Thank you. Nancy.
So am I here on audio?
Yes, you're here on audio.
Okay, for some reason my video camera isn't turning on. It says I should select another one, but I don't have one.
Oh no.
I do have a backup. Let me try this.
Okay. So Nancy, in addition to being an editor extraordinaire, a herder of cats, she is also the author of a fabulous book. And while she sets up her video camera, I hear doggos. There are doggos. So the best way we have to thank you is with a dose of cute. So here is your dose of cute. This is, you're seeing the little tiny tail of little Stella Sky. She is a miniature Australian Shepherd, and the big guy who's currently shaved to look like a bear is Eddie. These are our CosmoQuest doggos who bring you a whole lot of cute in thanks for all that you do to support our show. They are also doing their best possible imitation of a vacuum cleaner at the moment. So we can just talk, Nancy, while the doggos clean Cheerios up off the carpeting, because really, that's totally cool.
Okay, so I installed another camera. It says it's on, but I'm not seeing anything.
No, I see a wall of black.
I see a wall of gray. Crazy.
Okay.
Oh, just a minute. Let me try this. Oh, well. It's really great to see you, Pamela.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. We can talk while dogs eat Cheerios, and I'm going to see if I can find a picture of you to do like they do on CNN.
Oh, okay. Oh gosh.
So you've been part of my life as a co-conspirator in all things digital since, oh man, I think we must have met in 2007 with Fraser, maybe?
Yep. It was 2007 when I came on full time at Universe Today, and then somehow you came up with all these fun and exciting things for me to do as well. And I've enjoyed everything that you, all the fun adventures that you brought me along on. It's been really fun.
My favorite story with you is we were flying together to a dot astro meeting in Leiden, the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And I was flying through London, and you took a direct flight with my students into Amsterdam, and we were going to meet up in Amsterdam. But we had a few extra hours, not we, you and my students had a few extra hours in Amsterdam. And can you tell our audience where you took my students?
Where did I take your students? Where did we go? Oh, did we go to a bar? No,
No,
I am like blanking on this. I'm really sorry.
it's you actually took them to the red light district.
Oh, that's right. Yes. I mean, how could I not remember that? Yeah, it actually wasn't my idea, but so okay, is there any video now? Here we go.
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't actually my idea. It was one of your students. I'm going
Okay,
to
that part I didn't
blame
know.
them, but no, we were going to go to the Anne Frank house, and the line was so long.
Oh yeah,
It was just wrapped around the entire block, and we just kind of said, "Oh, we don't want to stand in line. We want to see stuff." So we started walking, and we basically ended up in the red light district. So.
and you know, Corey Lehan, one of those students that you took, that was one of his first airplane trips ever, and he still worked for me for more than a decade later. And he's taken time off to work on some personal projects. He's working on some software that, if he releases it, will revolutionize all sorts of awesome stuff. And that's all I should say.
Okay, well, that's not surprising.
Yeah,
Corey's awesome.
Yeah, he's one of the most brilliant programmers I've ever met, dealt with, interacted with, and I'm honored to have gotten to work with him for so many years. And
Right.
I'm honored to have worked with you for so many years. And your books, tell our audience about you took time off of working on new media and collaborating with us to go off and like give us awesome things to read.
Well, thank you. Yeah, my first book is Incredible Stories from Space, and it kind of highlights the NASA's robotic missions, so the unmanned missions, the uncrewed missions. And what I did there is I really just love telling the stories of people who work in space and astronomy. Fraser Kane gave me the wonderful opportunity to work at Universe Today for so many years, and I still show up there every once in a while. I'm like a bad penny. I keep showing up. But through all the writing that I did, I just really realized how much I love telling people's stories. And the people who are involved in space and astronomy have such unique and wonderful stories, and they have such unique and wonderful jobs, because these are jobs that a lot of people don't ever have the chance to do. And so telling their kind of unique behind the scenes stories of working on the robotic missions, things like the Curiosity rover and the New Horizons mission to Pluto and beyond. And I did about 9 different missions and really delved behind the scenes of what it's like to work on those missions. And that book was a lot of fun. I have a new book coming out on July 2nd. And since
available for pre-order on Amazon.
Available for pre-order. And since this is the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing, you can maybe guess what the book is about. The title of it is called 8 Years to the Moon. And so, again, I got to interview a lot of wonderful people, people who worked on the Apollo missions, and really behind the scenes. So people probably that you've never heard of before, but they bring, it was...
Can you give us one small story from the book that people might never have heard?
Well, let's see. Oh, there's so many different stories. So, it's estimated that it took 400,000 people to make the Apollo missions possible and
Yeah.
to get them to land on the moon. But I knew I couldn't tell 400,000 stories, but I did interview over 40 people who worked not only at NASA, but some of the contractor companies as well. And then I brought in an additional about 20 oral histories because, this is 50 years ago. A lot of
Yeah.
these people have passed away. So
Yeah.
most of the people that I talked to were in their 70s and 80s,
Wow.
and but they had some great stories. So one of the things that I was not aware of was that the small thrusters on the outside of the Apollo spacecraft that allowed them to maneuver so precisely and do the
Yeah.
rendezvous in space and land the lunar lander, they had so many problems with
Oh.
them getting them to work. So in the tests that they were doing in like vacuum chambers at NASA and at some of the contractor companies, they were blowing up all the time.
Oh no.
Yeah, and also on Gemini, there was they had a problem. All of the Gemini missions, there was thrust degradation, and towards the end of the mission, they would, if some of the longer missions, they only had about 4% thrust on some of the thrusters, and
Ooh.
they were able to work around it. But it wasn't until after the Gemini missions were over that they figured out what the problem was, and it was, and then that carried over into Apollo as well. And yeah, it was. And there's a kind of funny story of how they finally figured out there was some gunk kind of building up inside these thrusters.
Oh geez.
And so they were doing a test in the vacuum chamber at the Manned Spacecraft Center, which is now known as Johnson Space Center. And it was a 14-day test. They were simulating some of the like a 2-week mission to the moon. So
Yeah.
firing the thrusters like they were on a mission to the moon and back. And it was late one night, and they were changing shifts, and one of the guys came in and he said, this gunk was getting all over inside of the vacuum chamber, not only just inside the thrusters. And a guy came in, he said, I think the gunk is getting out into the, it's all over the cars outside in the parking lot.
Oh God.
Yeah, and people at NASA wanted them to stop the test, and the guy who is leading it, his name is Henry Pohl, and he is a character. Let me tell you, he's a really funny guy. And he said, "No, I want to keep this going. I want to know what's going on." So he had to sign a paper that if something bad happened, that he would take responsibility. But he had some chemists come in the next morning, and they looked at what that was. They took some samples off the cars that were out in the parking lot covered with this stuff. And they looked and they looked and they looked through the microscopes. Finally, one of them stood up and said, I think that's just pollen. And what had happened there, right behind the Manned Spacecraft Center, was a big field of goldenrod and ragweed.
Uh-huh.
And the wind had just blown all the pollen onto the cars, and it looked
And
exactly.
it was just coincidence.
It was exactly like the gunk that was created by the thrusters.
That's
So,
hilarious.
yeah, that was a crazy story.
Oh jeez. It's like the bird poop that wasn't the microwave background.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
That is awesome. And what I love about what you've done is you haven't just researched things by reading books. You've embedded yourself by going to conferences, by going to launches. How long did you go take up residence in Florida to watch launch after launch after launch?
I was down there for 2 months in 2010, and that was a really wonderful experience. Yeah, it was. I got to see 4 different launches, 2 space shuttle launches, and 2 different. One was the Solar Dynamics Observatory,
Uh-huh.
and the other one was one of the GOES satellites, the weather satellites. So yeah, it was. I had not seen a space shuttle launch, and of course the program was going to be ending in
Yeah.
2011. So I kind of just decided to
Stayed.
take the plunge and stay and see as many as I could. I just missed out on seeing another space shuttle launch too. It was,
Ugh.
my time was up. My family was saying, "Come home, come
Yeah.
home,"
Yeah.
and yeah, so
And SDO was a particularly interesting launch because the launch itself went fine, but a lot of the I'm gonna sneeze, maybe. Apparently not. Okay, false sneeze alarm. Um, a lot of the people who were tied to the mission got snowed in at Goddard. And
yes,
so there was this really weird emotion on the internet of my heart is with you, but I'm snowed in. What was
yeah.
what was it
Yeah,
like
it
for
was it
you?
was yeah, it was fun because I got to stand right next to some of the mission scientists as we watched the spacecraft launch, um and then I don't know if you remember, there was this weird kind of atmospheric thing that happened where when the spacecraft, or when the rocket went through, I guess it was just at a certain level, and it went through some of the cirrus clouds, and it created this kind of ripple effect.
Yeah, yeah, it was a
And
temperature inversion layer.
yeah, so that was really cool, and they were all excited. They were like, "Oh, SDO's, showing us new things, even just as it's launching." So, yeah, and I then chose SDO to be part of my first book, and it was fun that I got to go out to Goddard and see the same scientists that I stood next to
Yes.
during the launch and go talk to them. And it was actually, I can't remember how many years to the day. I guess, let's see what that would have been. 10. It was probably like 6 years to the day of the launch, and I was there, and so they had kind of a SDO's greatest hits playing in the background as we were
Right.
talking. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah, that mission has been amazing with
Yeah.
the incredible HD views of the moon, or of the sun, that are just kind
Yeah.
of revolutionizing what we know.
Tornadoes. They found
Yes.
plasma tornadoes in the atmosphere of the sun.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Now, with the new astronaut book, not astronaut, the new Apollo book that you have coming out, did you get to talk to Buzz Aldrin?
I did not, and
Ah,
I've kind of chose not to.
well, he's
Uh,
scary. I'd be scared to interview him. He's awesome, but intimidating.
Right. I kind of wanted to tell the people stories who haven't had the chance to tell their stories, or hadn't been asked to tell their stories. So it's real true behind the scenes stories. And uh, let's see, I'm trying to think of some of the people that, like electrical engineers and chemical engineers.
So
I t-
Annie Wilson, our own Binary Ablaze, she is asking, did you talk to anyone about toilets?
Yes.
there's a brief mention of how the Gemini, uh, John Young was very vociferous. Astronaut John Young was very vociferous that he did not want to wear any diapers,
Yes.
and there was a there was a meeting where they had to decide if they were going to put a crotch zipper in the Gemini spacesuit, because they had too many linear inches of zippers in the spacesuit because they needed to add this and that. And one idea was to take out the crotch zipper, which meant that they would have to wear a diaper for the entirety of
And these are
the
like multiple
mission.
day missions.
Oh yeah, yeah, they
So
were.
you would have,
Yeah,
that's gross. I'm with him
yes,
on this one. I am
I
totally
know.
with him on this one.
Yeah, so there's that story, but not too much bathroom stories in there otherwise. But I did tell the stories of two of the very few women engineers at NASA. One of them is Dottie Lee,
Uh huh.
and she worked on the heat shield, and she'd been with NASA since before it was NASA. She worked at Langley Research Center,
Wow.
and I and she's still alive, but I ended up having to interview her daughters because she has dementia now,
Okay.
and so I interviewed her daughters, and they were really gracious about remembering parts of their childhood. They
Yeah.
Both their dad and their mom worked at NASA, so And then I also told the story of Catherine Osgood, who was another engineer, women engineer in the rendezvous area. So, I mean, she was doing just incredibly high-powered math to figure out how to do these rendezvous in space, which
And
was something that nobody had ever done or attempted before.
and this is math that was like slide rules and paper and pencils and not like the math CAD stuff we do today.
Right. It was all slide rules and pencil and paper. Yeah, her favorite quote is, "You just learn to keep your pencil sharp," because and even when they started using computers, it was the very rudimentary computers, and they had to use the punch cards. And if you
Yeah.
were doing some sort of program, you had to use multiple punch cards. And if you were and they didn't have a computer, there was only one set of computers at the Manned Spacecraft Center. And so if you were working on the punch cards, you had to bring them over in order. And if you dropped them or somehow they got out of order, you had to start all over again. And yeah, it was
Tripping
definitely a challenge.
tripping with punch cards is just the most horrifying way to go.
Yeah.
I I- I've got no words for that one. I just no words for that one.
Yeah, yeah. So I have some kind of exciting news that I was going to
Yes.
share.
Please
Um,
share.
I was going to share this next week on social media, but since I'm on here, so
Yeah.
I was going to share who wrote the foreword for my book,
Oh,
and it's Apollo 9 astronaut Rusty Schweikert.
he's such a nice human.
He is a wonderful human, and I've had the opportunity to interview him several times over the years about the work that he does with the B612 Foundation
Yeah.
and looking for asteroids that might potentially pose a problem for Earth. And so I did kind of have a really good relationship with him, as as far as him liking what I had written
Right.
and that kind of thing. So yeah, I knew he was incredibly busy. There's been all these 50th anniversaries for all of the missions, and his was just in March, his 50th anniversary of his mission, Apollo 9.
Oh man.
And yeah, so but he found time to do it. So yeah, I'll share it. I'll have a cover reveal next week of the new and improved cover of my book.
That is fabulous, and we will have to have you come on the Daily Space when you release your book.
Sure, that sounds great.
Now, where are you going to be for the 50th anniversary?
Well, I'm going to be doing a presentation on July 17th at the Bell Museum in Minneapolis. It's a planetarium at the University of Minnesota and Natural History Museum. I'll be doing that. As far as the 20th, I don't have a definite thing that I can share yet, but we'll see how things develop.
Yeah, I still don't know where I'm going to be. We still have time to plan, and whatever happens,
Yeah.
I'm so pleased that we get to still keep celebrating science together.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
has
exactly.
been a long, long ride.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, I was looking back at some info about the first few years of 365 Days of Astronomy,
Yeah,
um, and it was I had forgotten this, but so for the first year, 2009,
yeah.
our calendar filled up by the middle of February. We had the
Yes.
entire year booked by the middle of February, which was unbelievable. And I was looking at some of the we had kind of compiled some different things here. We had our highest peak was 40,000 weekly downloads,
Wow.
and
So we're still
that was
averaging
unbelievable.
35,000. So we're still
Yeah,
doing pretty good.
yeah, that's amazing. The longevity of this project is really a tribute to you, Pamela.
Oh,
It's
it's all of us.
yeah, it was really a fun project to be involved with. So I thank you very much for getting me involved. I was the project manager, I guess, for 3 years, and
Yeah.
it definitely kept me busy of just the daily emails of people inquiring about it, and then getting back to them with all the information and how they were going to do their podcasts and all that. And there's one name that stands out for me, the
Yeah.
person who was a very prolific podcaster. And then later on, when we did have some people like drop out
Right.
occasionally, and we had to have emergency backup podcasts. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I remember also like all the times where you're like, okay, I need you to record this thing right now. And I was like, I once recorded from a luggage carousel in Orlando.
oh no. Oh gosh. So anyway, yeah, Steve Nerlich from
Yes.
Australia.
Yeah.
He was one of our most prolific podcasters, and he came up. We talked about needing these emergency backup podcasts, so he just recorded a bunch and
Yeah.
sent them to us, and we had them in our back pocket whenever we needed a backup. So that was wonderful. And yeah, we had podcasts from pretty much all over Europe. Tanzania, I think, was one of our
Yeah.
podcasters was from Tanzania,
Yep.
Mexico, Australia, the US, Sri Lanka, Iceland.
It's
Uh,
it's been amazing. It's been a
yeah.
lot of years. And Mike Simonson, who's one of the people that we worked with to make the International Year, not Simonson, Mike Simmons. Dang it. Both of them were part of the show. Mike
Yes.
Simmons is coming on next
Oh,
and
great.
is going to help us remember everything that occurred. Now, before I let you go, one more time, tell people the name of your book so they can go pre-order it on Amazon. That's an unsubtle hint, everyone.
Yeah, very unsettled. Yeah, 8 Years to the Moon, and the subtitle is The History of the Apollo Missions. The book is separated out by the 8 years that took place from President Kennedy saying we should go to the moon to when Apollo got to the moon, and Apollo 11. So yeah, it was a big project. I worked on it for about a year and talked to a lot of amazing people, and I really hope people enjoy reading the really fun, heartwarming, and heartbreaking stories that these people shared with me.
I can't wait to get my hands on it.
All
As
right.
always, it's been fabulous having you here, Nancy. And I look forward to all the new things we are able to find to collaborate on in the many years to come.
Oh, I hope so. That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on. It was wonderful to be a part of today and the past of 365 Days of Astronomy.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Bye bye.
Right. Bye-bye.
So, in just a moment, Mike Simmons is going to be joining us from, well, I don't know if it's sunny, but it's usually sunny out in California. Mike, I need your video camera, please. There's your video camera. So let me just figure out how to switch up my settings. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to remind all of you that this show is brought to you by you. We have been able to keep producing 365 Days of Astronomy for these 10 years, thanks to the generous contributions of, well, at this point, thousands of people. It costs us about $45 a day to produce each and every episode. That is paying for our servers, it's paying for the hosting of the audio, and it's paying for our cat herders and audio engineers. If you want to be part of helping to keep our ship running smoothly, well, all you need to do is click on over to patreon.com slash 365 Days of Astronomy. There we go. Click on over to the video, to the link on my screen. And, well, we will be recording in the final hour of today all of the sponsorship messages that come in. I would like to thank Matt Kaplan, Kevin Nitka, Chris DiPiero, Helga Bjorkog, and Kyle Carmichael for purchasing sponsorships so far. And thank you so much to everyone who has donated or otherwise given. One of you awesome individuals sent us in enough bits to have purchased a sponsorship. If you can hop on to Discord or whisper to one of our mods, we will hook you you up so that you get that sponsorship. So, without further ado, I am pleased to introduce you all to the director of Astronomers Without Borders, my good colleague who I have traveled the world with as we have inflicted astronomy on the planet. I think that's a good way to put it, is on the planet. Welcome, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited about being here and what you guys are doing here. I just brought up Patreon, so I can do that personally, but I didn't listen enough to the link, so I'm gonna the next time you do your promo, I'll get it and hopefully get that in there for myself, because we've been working together. Well, we're both survivors of International Year of Astronomy.
That's an accurate way to put it.
Yeah, and we've been working together for the 10 years since then too.
Yeah.
And promoting what each other do.
And it's Global Astronomy Month. I'm so pleased that you managed to find time to join us during Global Astronomy Month.
Well, well, this is really important, so I would no matter what. But, there are other people taking care of all that now, so I don't have to necessarily do that, and I get to do fun things like this and hang out with you for a while.
That is awesome. So can you tell our audience a little bit about Astronomers Without Borders and how you got evolved and basically got snookered into being one of the major implementers of the 2009 International Year of Astronomy?
Oh, well. So Astronomers Without Borders is the biggest really diverse community of astronomy enthusiasts. Includes amateur astronomers and everybody else around the world.
Artists. I'm just going to point that out.
Artists. We have a huge astro art program. I mean, astronomy is not just science. Astronomy is art. Astronomy is culture. We use it in everything. If you go to Yelp and rate something, you can give a 4-star review. I mean, astronomy is in everything, always has been. And there are enthusiasts around the world, and what they really want to do is share with other people, sidewalk astronomy. And when we say around the world, I mean every country that I know of has amateur astronomers who are enthusiastic. Even if they don't have telescopes, they're still sharing their knowledge with everybody out there. So what we do is connect them together. And we can do special things that way. We can do programs that otherwise would be impossible. we can do educational programs, and we're doing more education now. We can raise money to send telescopes to Puerto Rico for 20 schools there to do astronomy programs, because their schools sort of got wiped out, and now they have something really exciting that they can do, in Nigeria and things like that. How it got started? Well, that started with my own travels. I say it started with the total eclipse of 1999, when most people went to Europe. I was thinking of going to Turkey. Through a series of circumstances, I ended up in Iran. And when I found it completely different than I realized. This very pro-American, very enthusiastic astronomy community, very young, not like here in the US at all. And so when I came back and I wrote articles for Sky and Tel and Mercury and gave presentations, people were amazed. And what I realized was they wanted to connect with these people with a common passion. And that passion has nothing to do with the politics or where you are or anything else. We're all looking up, sharing the same sky, and doing the same thing. That passion supersedes everything else. And so with some other trips to Iraq and so on, I eventually realized it's got to be expanded and started it. Okay, so in the midst of that, I was asked to take over 100 hours of astronomy, the Cornerstone Project, in 2009.
And all of you folks out there that thought I was crazy to host a 40-hour hangout-a-thon, this man, he did 100 hours straight.
Yeah, well, I didn't have to be on live. It was the year, it was a near-death experience. uh, it was a lot of work. What happened was I said, "Oh yeah, this is a huge task, and we have tremendous potential, and I'll do this if you guys give me the IAU and the Secretariat
Yeah.
of the IOA give me this enormous amount of money so we can do it right." And then
And
the
that's
economy
not quite
crashed,
how
and
it
they got
happened.
yeah, the economy crashed, and they barely hung on to do it themselves. So we did it with all volunteers and a teeny little amount of money and a couple of sponsors. And we had for the biggest thing was the global starport.
Yeah,
That
that
was
was,
around the world as darkness moved from one area to another, and
yeah.
people would pick it up. And we we can't get an accurate count of all of it, but I know that we had at least a half a million and probably a million people look through telescopes in one night.
Wow.
And that's something I don't think we're going to be able to repeat,
No.
not for a long time, because it was a very special event. So, Global Astronomy Month is an outgrowth of that. We wanted to just keep that network going and incorporate it into what we were doing. And every April we do that. This is the 10th year we've been doing that, and that includes astronomy and the arts live online programs. There are
Yeah.
contests for astro poetry and astro art. This
Yeah.
this doesn't come from me. You know that it's not my thing. These are ideas that come from the community and from different people. So many different things that are going on during this time
And
everywhere.
one of the things that has always really amazed me with what you do is the diversity of people that you bring together. From helping to get the world at night established, and it's now a fabulous standalone project,
Right.
to hunting down the poets, the astro artists of the world. It's thank you, Astro YYZ. We just got a really healthy donation that I'm super pleased about. Thank
Oh,
you. And it's a symmetric number, which you know I really like. Um, it's everyone needs more symmetry in their lives. You have really worked to make sure that astronomy isn't just about who owns the big glass, who has the darkest skies. It's anyone who has a passion, and you're sharing that passion. Has there been any one thing that stood out as like just like, oh my God, I got to be part of this that you have
mm.
seen get fostered with AWB?
There were quite a few things. One thing first, I want to correct you on one word. We don't hunt down people who are involved in astropoetry. They come to us.
That's true.
These
That's true.
things come from them. The thing is, they're already out there. We're the glue that puts them together so that when they share in their clubs, they share with the public out on their streets, we can have them share with everybody else. So if you want to see what's going on in Malaysia during this time, you can check it out in our member reports,
Yeah.
right on the front page actually. Uh, One thing that stood out. There are a lot of things that stand out. I think what I learned fairly quickly with my visits to some of these countries
Mm-hmm.
is that unlike what we would expect here in the U.S. and Western countries that are fairly well off, being associated with an international NGO that's based in the U.S. that's doing astronomy by itself is a huge boost to the clubs and so on. One of my first, on my second visit to Iraq, for example, I went
Yeah.
to Kurdistan up in the north, and they had been trying to get help from the government for a long time. Well,
Yeah.
they got it after I was there. It lends credibility. The things that people can do by being a part of the community, sharing, and being able to say we're a part of something bigger has a tremendous impact. And that has turned out to be one of the main things, really. And this has
Yeah.
happened in many, many cases.
Now, one of the things that I've really appreciated is you have looked to take the resources that others might just toss away and recycle them around the world. And I have to thank all the people who are donating bits this hour. You are making my heart happy. Thank you. Uh, so, Mike, one of the things that you've really done that has pleased me is, for instance, with the eclipse here in America in 2017. Well, we didn't have enough eclipse glasses on the day of the eclipse because Lord knows everyone in the United States tried to go outside and look. You went out and found ways to gather up those glasses and share them with parts of the world that wouldn't have had glasses in the future. Can you share some of these programs that you've helped foster that basically recycles things from one part of the world to another?
Yeah, well, that was another. I have a habit of having these ideas that gets everybody into trouble.
Wow.
Because and taking small things and making them bigger. We used to have things for eclipses that went across Africa where
Yeah.
we'd raise money and say, look, guys, if you give us $1 for each pair of glasses, we will get them to countries in Africa, to schools in Africa. And the dollar wasn't just the price of it. We had to get, there was shipping and distribution, customs, everything else. And so we'd get 15,000 and we'd send them over there.
Yeah.
And one of our staff, Andy, said, hey, the eclipse is over. Why don't we, or it's coming up, why don't we ask people to give us their glasses? And I thought, wow, we'll get 50,000 with no effort whatsoever. Well,
how many did you actually get?
Somewhere between 2 and 3 million.
Yeah.
And so now, and it just is massive. You have no idea in the logistics and everything. But we have people. Zoe, an AWB, is leading the charge to get them down to Chile and Argentina and Bolivia and Brazil and what other countries in South America for the July 2nd eclipse, working with U.S. embassies and anybody else that can do it. We're talking to people in India and Sri Lanka and other countries for the upcoming annular eclipses.
Yeah.
And when you start looking at the whole world, especially those annular eclipses in India, that'll be seen by 2 or 3 billion people.
Yes.
So it really is a drop in the bucket. But for us, it's a kind of a big deal. And we didn't raise funds for this program. We're just we're getting by with the kindness of strangers, like I say, U.S. embassies. But it's not easy when those get dropped on you like that.
Well, and one of the phrases that you put forward that I have ruthlessly stolen and reused with attribution most of the time is the phrase "one world, one people, one sky," and
Yeah.
that idea, I usually add one world in front of it. You say one people, one sky. That's the theme of Astronomers Without Borders.
Right.
We are one world. We're the only world we know of that humans can survive on. We are one people scattered across the planet. And we share that same sky, and it takes all of us to understand the science. And so the least we can do is get that science to all of us.
Right. And I have to tell you that if you want to give attribution to that, I stole it from Rick Feinberg.
Okay, I will.
and he reminds me of every AAS meeting I attend, or I tell him I'm still using your stolen. So I wrote a piece for Sky and Tell when he was editor-in-chief about the idea of this, and he used that as the title. But it changes whether it's one world or, some languages, they don't really have the equivalent of that use of people. So,
Yeah.
They make it one world, one sky. But here's the thing, I know some astronauts, Frank White, the overview effect about what it's like flying over Earth and seeing it as a planet in space amongst the stars and so on. And to me, astronomy is the overview effect for the rest of us. Because if I'm looking at the moon as it's rising, and I know somebody else in India is watching the moon setting, Well, all we're doing really, it's Buckminster Fuller's Spaceship Earth.
Yeah.
We're looking out different portholes, looking in different directions. It's no different than being in a bus and one person saying beautiful mountains out here and the other one saying beautiful plains on the other side. But then when you turn, you see the opposite things. We're on the same vehicle. We're all crew members on that spaceship Earth. And astronomy is one thing that brings us together. So it's that connectivity and that passion that brings us together. And then, as you point out, people are bringing science to everyone.
Yeah.
With the eclipse glasses goes STEM education
Yep.
in schools. Lindsay's our education person, and so many different things that we can do together as a result of that passionate, driven community.
And you're another one of these examples of people who is passionate about space and demonstrates you don't need a PhD to do remarkable things. You actually come to AWB from a second career working in the medical field, and this is where you found your second career, where you should be retired, but instead you decided to just change the world for the better.
Oh, well, you got to have a hobby. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
so one of our board members told me once, "You don't do retirement well,"
You
and I never
don't.
expected I would. But yeah, I was in medical research at UCLA, but I'm kind of I didn't have a PhD or an MD there either. I just sort of worked my way in through various things from programming starting 50 years ago and learning biostatistics and then hiring students and little things like that. But astronomy was what I studied in college before
Yeah.
I realized that I had to feed my family and that wasn't going to do it.
That
Uh,
hurts because it's
I
true.
know. Well, we're talking about a long time ago, and the unemployment rate for PhDs in going into their field then was 75%.
It's worse now.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate. It is still, I do not regret for a second having done astronomy.
Yeah.
I used my physics, I've used my math in everything, which is
Yeah.
what people generally do. But so, so I stayed in astronomy the whole time. It isn't like I've been involved at public observatories like Griffith in LA and Mount Wilson Observatory for many years. So it isn't like I stayed out of it and I was president of LA Astronomical Society and so on. So now I just decided to take it to new self-flagellating heights and beat myself up doing this.
Now, you have along the way gotten to visit some of the more awesome observatories around the world. What is your favorite place that you've got to see the sky from?
Well, it isn't necessarily the professional observatories because I haven't been to that many of those. I bet I'm the only one you're going to have on here or of a good group that we get together hasn't been up to Mauna Kea, for example.
Oh, I went once. I'm never going again. I don't deal with altitude or
Yeah.
sulfa.
Well, yeah, that's another thing I used to do is some mountaineering. But so to me, I'm passionate about the people,
Yeah.
not the things. I mean, I've been to Large Binocular Telescope. It's incredible. I've
Yeah.
been to
Mount Graham outside of Tucson.
yeah, I've been to Grand Canary, whatever it's called, and so on. And it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah.
But I'm more excited about the people that are using it. I've flown on Sophia, did a
Yeah.
little piece about that. I interviewed the people there and what it's like. So when I go places, the interesting place, I care about what they're doing and what things are like. I was just in Brazil for seventh time or something like that, which is I feel comfortable because I can walk around in a t-shirt and shorts and sandals and give my presentation that way if I want to, just like here in sunny Southern California. So
Right.
Romania recently, a visit to Transylvania and so on, and probably going back to Iran and Iraq and Dubai after the summer.
Dubai is still on my bucket list.
Yeah, well, other than flying through there once in the airport, which itself is
Amazing.
an attraction. Yeah, no, I haven't been there either. But so I'm terrible at saying what's your favorite, what's your number one. I'm terrible at that. But the experiences I have are not about going to visit the observatories or going to do sightseeing. It's about meeting with the people there. My the favorite thing is like Iran, for example, and they find out you're an American, they invite you
Yeah.
into their homes for dinner and things
Yeah.
like that. And that's what I really like, the traditional music places. I was in Ethiopia recently and went to one of those music places. That was on my bucket list for a long time. And learning what they do there, that was a great trip because the astronomy and space science they're doing is so great. But again, it's because the people are passionate. They are on it. I mean, they are really changing the face of Africa with what they're doing.
Telescopes for Tanzania was a project that introduced me to all the change that is possible. The planetariums in Ghana, the it's the largest continent in the world, and it had past tense so little astronomy, and now the nation is changing as it adopts some of the most large and outstanding new technologies and changes the countryside as it dots more astronomy across as it can. And thank you for the subs. Thank you for the donations. You guys are taking the words away from me and making me hungry with your mention of Ethiopian food because taking the words away from me. I have a weird echo. Where did Angel, you need to mute. I'm going to mute you, Angel. Okay, Angel has been muted. So, yeah, it's a crazy, awesome, wonderful world out there.
Yeah, well, Africa definitely is changing. One of the IAU's initiatives, the Office of Astronomy for Development, has been implementing the 10-year strategic plan that the IAU adopted, and showing how astronomy can be used to increase resources, to do so much to develop countries, economically as well as culturally, and all these other
Yes.
things. Telescopes to Tanzania is something that was started by somebody and then came into Astronomers Without Borders as an umbrella. Chuck Reilly and his wife Sue, retired Lutheran ministers. Chuck, unfortunately, we lost him a few years ago. But it is about using astronomy to bring science into the country, into remote places where they don't have a chem lab, they don't have a physics lab, but they have a far better astronomy lab than we have because they don't have electricity a lot of the time
Yeah.
to just go outside and look. And it takes so little. The teachers get trained and the students get trained. It's a gateway. Astronomy is a gateway drug for STEM and so on. But there are many little things here and there, and they're starting to link up with each other. And that collaboration is what really makes the difference, and is what we try to do in
Yeah.
Astronomers Without Borders, to provide the connection, to provide the platform so that everybody can learn from each other, share what they've done, spread the wealth of resources and knowledge. And we do have the ability to change the world. Astronomy could change the world if we could get it's looking through a telescope the first time is a life-changing experience. If you have places to follow up with science education and so on, if
And
everybody got that one people, one sky vision.
and I was going to say, you made it possible for me to inflict stars upon others. You sent me one of your Celestron AWB themed scopes, and it's the perfect size to sit on a table and put it next to your Halloween candy and share the sky while you are enjoying your Halloween visitors. And I'm so
I'll
grateful for
bet
that little scope.
I bet I knew you were going to make good use of it, and I bet that the kids were more excited about seeing the moon or whatever it was than getting another piece of candy.
And I didn't get a chance to tell you this before, but Fraser and Dave Dickinson's new book, they needed someone to do a solar funnel photo for them, like a how you set up a solar funnel. And I used your little scope and a 32-ounce glass from not glass, 32-ounce plastic cup from the local fast food joint to make a solar filter, and the photo is in the book. So your telescope is
Oh,
in their book
I
sporting
have.
a solar funnel.
I think I have the book and I haven't leafed through it yet. I've got to do that, but I'll put in just a quick promo for people who want to know what we're talking about. The One Sky telescope,
Yeah.
AWB One Sky. You'll find reviews and everything all over the place, provided by Celestron, who at way below a
Yeah.
normal wholesale, we get almost half of the proceeds. It is a major thing if you need either a beginner's telescope. It's one of the best, and if
Uh, Cosmic Lettuce, please stop screen sharing.
and,
Sorry.
and yeah, and also for advanced amateurs, they use it as a grab and go because it's so easy to take out, set it up, put it next to the Halloween bucket of candy or whatever. So that's a major fundraiser for us. So I had to put in that promo, but it is
Yeah.
really a service to people. That's the telescope we sent to the first girls astronomy camp in Nigeria into 20 schools in Puerto Rico and so on. We were able to get it cheaply and use it for those programs.
And the hardest part about setting up that scope is getting the styrofoam off. Um,
Well, yeah, I know. I just did it a couple days ago with another one here. It used to be too easy. They got damaged a lot. We
oh,
finally got them to pack it better. But
well, I do need to move on to the next guest. Where should people go to learn more about everything that you do?
well, Astronomers Without Borders.org. And
That
Borders does not have an A in it. Just want to remind people because that happens a lot. Astronomers Without Borders.
I you are both most of the time.
Well, yes, I try to do both.
So thank you so much for joining us. I'm now going to transition over to get Angel coming in. While I do that, I'm going to give everyone a quick reminder that if you want to help support this show, you are welcome to, in fact, you are strongly encouraged to become one of our patrons over on patreon.com/365 days of astronomy.